So what I'm going to do in this section, though, is give you a little bit of a global understanding of the water-soluble vitamins and kind of pull out some key points that I thought worth highlighting that can maybe help you with your studying as well. For your studying, what I really recommend is knowing all the things that are on this slide, these slides. I really tried to tailor the slides to pull out the most important parts from the textbook. So for sure know what's written in here. And what you might want to do is make up a chart that lists the various vitamins, the water-soluble and the fat-soluble vitamins, and then in that chart have functions, symptoms of deficiency, symptoms of toxicity, and sources. I really recommend doing that work to organize the material yourself. Yes, you can just look it up, I get it, but actually doing the work is part of the learning process. So what I want to do in this section is give you a global understanding of the water-soluble vitamins. Remember, these are the ones that we don't store on the body, that can move around in watery environments, and that are less likely to be toxic because we can pee them out if they tend to build up. The water-soluble vitamins are the B vitamins and then vitamin C. Those are all the water-soluble vitamins. And you'll notice with the B vitamins that they often have a B name and also like a common name. So vitamin B1 is thiamine, vitamin B2 is riboflavin, B3 is niacin, and so on. So there's a vitamin B1 and there's a vitamin B12, but there's actually in total only 8 B vitamins because some were ruled out as vitamins over the years. Plants and animals naturally contain these B vitamins, and both vegetarians and people that eat animal products can get these B vitamins through the foods they eat, with the exception of vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is really not available in plant products. Nutritional yeast is something that does contain vitamin B12, but quite honestly, if you're a vegan or vegetarian, that's the one that I would recommend supplementing. Think B vitamins and think energy metabolism. Think of cellular respiration. This process, well, this is part of the process that we saw in chapter 3. The B vitamins, they are mostly involved as coenzymes for cellular respiration. Please note the B vitamins do not provide energy, but what they help us do is to actually do the process that facilitates taking the energy yielding nutrients, carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins, and capturing the energy found in their bonds in the bonds of ATP. The B vitamins help us do that by facilitating all the enzymatic reactions necessary for cellular respiration to occur. So for instance, you'll notice right here, riboflavin forms part of the electron transporter flavin adenine dinucleotide. And niacin helps promote the activity of nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, another electron transporter necessary for the electron transport chain to occur. So as you go through, you'll notice that all the B vitamins play a role in energy metabolism at some point. They also often have other roles as well. One of the things that makes learning about the vitamins interesting is learning about symptoms of deficiency and symptoms of toxicity. So symptoms of deficiency, what happens when I don't eat enough? And symptoms of toxicity, what happens when I eat too much? Okay, so for instance, thiamine deficiency, which is rare in the developed world, but is more common in alcoholics in the developing world, or in areas where nutritional deprivation is more common. Thiamine deficiency can actually negatively affect brain health and lead to conditions that affect mental performance, can increase the risk of mental confusion, and can leave people feeling very disoriented and just odd mentally as well. And that's why we need to consume enough thiamine. Riboflavin deficiency, on the other hand, is associated with erybroflavinosis, and I have this picture here to give us a sense of what erybroflavinosis might look like. What I like about the word erybroflavinosis is that it actually has the word riboflavin in it. Okay, so you should be able to figure that out on an exam, but that is a riboflavin deficiency. Deficiency of riboflavin can lead to these skin disorders that include like a swelling and a cracking of the lips and the mouth, and that can be quite uncomfortable, but in general we consume a lot. Niacin deficiency is another really interesting one because it can lead to a condition called pellagra, which was quite common in populations that consumed like a corn-heavy diet, which tends to be low in niacin. Pellagra is quite a serious disease that can lead to death, but is also associated with dermatitis, diarrhea, and dementia. It is very rare nowadays because we know what causes it, but there's a cool story in the textbook about how we discovered the cause of pellagra and some of how we did early nutrition experiments. Okay. Pantothenic acid, not much to say about it. Deficiency and toxicity rare. It's needed for coenzyme A. That's the most important thing about that. Vitamin B6. Vitamin B6, a lot of people supplement with it, but quite honestly, a lot of its proposed effects are not yet backed by a sufficient amount of scientific evidence for us to fully recommend it for all these different functions that it's prescribed for. Okay. But there is still research ongoing into these proposed effects to see if it does actually do these things. Maybe we find in the future it does. Deficiency of vitamin B6 is going to cause a type of anemia. And anemia is a condition where our red blood cells, there's not enough of them, or they're oddly shapen, or they're just not effective at carrying blood. In a case of a microcytic anemia, micro meaning small, cytic meaning cell, the cells are really small and again, unable to carry oxygen. So we're actually going to notice anemia when we talk about iron deficiency, when we talk about B12 deficiency, and we talk about B9 deficiency. Anemia can happen for a number of different reasons, and it kind of occurs in a slightly different fashion for each of them. However, the kind of symptoms are often the same. Tiredness, lethargy, a general like exhaustion. These are all very common symptoms of anemia. Okay. Biotin, not too much to say about this one. Deficiency and toxicity are rare, as it says there. Folate to me is one of the most interesting B vitamins because it's so important for DNA and RNA synthesis, which makes it especially important for embryonic and fetal cells. So for the developing child within a pregnant mother. Folate deficiency, because it's so important for DNA synthesis, can lead to something called neural tube defects if a mother is deficient in B9 while she is pregnant. These neural tube defects, the neural tube, this is what a neural tube looks like. It's an embryonic structure that eventually develops into the brain and the spinal cord. So it's really important, as the name implies. So neural tube defects are going to affect the nervous system. Sometimes where it can lead to something called anencephaly, which really is an absence of a large part of the brain. This is something that is not compatible with life and leads to a miscarriage or early death of that infant. Spina bifida is another birth defect. This is one of the most common neural tube defects where basically the spinal cord doesn't close as it should. And again, this can often lead to miscarriage and is a very serious condition that's associated with folate deficiency. That is why pregnant women or women that are considering becoming pregnant, the number one thing that the doctor is going to tell you if you are pregnant or thinking about becoming pregnant is to take a multivitamin, yes, and one that contains folate because it's so important for the development of the neural tube. Folate deficiency can also lead to a type of anemia. This one, big. So a megaloblastic anemia means that the red blood cells are large and immature, basically. So you can kind of see kind of what it's trying to show here, that my red blood cell, it's large, it's a bit misshapen, and again, it's going to have a difficulty in carrying blood around the body, leading to those symptoms of anemia that we previously talked about. Vitamin B12, like I mentioned, something really important to remember about vitamin B12 is that it's almost entirely found in animal products. So vegans and vegetarians, I really recommend supplementing when it comes to B12. Vitamin B12, just like folate, is important for DNA synthesis and red blood cell formation. So they have some similarities there. Something else important to mention about vitamin B12 is that in order to absorb it, I need this factor called intrinsic factor to be secreted by the stomach. Intrinsic factor is secreted by the stomach, and later down in the small intestine, B12 and intrinsic factor have to be bound together in order for B12 to be absorbed. Why is this relevant? People that have problems with stomach acidity or stomach integrity, they often don't have enough of this intrinsic factor. It's often very common in older adults, especially those with the type of stomach inflammation that leads to like the breakdown of the stomach. Okay, so we often recommend that older adults supplement with B12 as well. Something else worth mentioning about B12, so remember there's similarities with folate. It can also lead to megaloblastic anemia if deficiency occurs. So again, we talked about anemia and the various symptoms that can lead to. Okay. The last water-soluble vitamin that is not a B vitamin, it's got its own name, vitamin C, also known as ascorbic acid. A lot of people think of vitamin C and they think scurvy, and they think oranges. And there's way more to talk about with respect to vitamin C than both scurvy and oranges. And quite honestly, oranges aren't even the best source of vitamin C. Red peppers, those are unbelievably high in vitamin C. So when it comes to vitamin C, we need to remember that it's very important for the proper formation of collagen. We learned about collagen in the protein chapter. Collagen is that really important structural protein that we have in our skin, that we have in connective tissue, that helps these structures have more, well, structural integrity. Okay, so these little these little fibers here, these are collagen fibers, and these collagen fibers, in order to help with that structural integrity, they've got to link up, or what we'd say cross-link, in a very organized fashion to like cause that strength that adds that structure to the tissues. For this, for collagen to properly cross-link, vitamin C is needed. Okay, so vitamin C is really important to the structural integrity of collagen and accordingly the tissues. With inadequate vitamin C, it doesn't cross-link properly, and it's going to be a little bit more misshapen and negatively impact the structure of that tissue. Vitamin C is also really important as an antioxidant. And this term antioxidant, we've seen it before, but this is the first time I want to explain this term a little bit further. So this is going to come up again with other vitamins like carotenoids, a form of vitamin A, and vitamin E. And it's also going to come up in the mineral section when we talk about certain minerals that can function as antioxidants. Antioxidant, as the name implies, these decrease the amount of oxidation that occurs in the body. Oxidation, if you took chemistry, you know that a loss of electrons, Leo, loss of electrons equals oxidation. Oxidation is typically an undesirable state, especially in the human body. It happens, oxidation happens all the time, but we want to minimize it. Okay, what is oxidation? Like I just said, it's a loss of electrons. Okay, there are molecules that form in the body. Sometimes they form a lot more if people are exposed to pollution or if they smoke cigarettes, but even exercise can increase free radical production. These are molecules that have kind of an unpaired electron. The electrons want to be paired, they need their mate. Okay, and if an electron is lacking its mate, it wants to be paired, it's going to look around for electrons to steal. It's going to look to oxidize another tissue so that tissue loses an electron. So here I have an example of a free radical stealing an electron from DNA in this case, leaving that DNA oxidized. And now that it has stolen that extra electron, now it has a paired electron. Now it has an electron pair, and now it's less reactive. It's neutralized, okay? But my DNA got damaged, and I don't want that to happen. And oxidation doesn't just affect DNA, it can affect cell membranes, it can affect many tissues in the body, compromising their integrity, okay? Now, what does an antioxidant do? An antioxidant has an extra electron to donate. Okay, it's like, here, have this electron so you don't go steal it from somewhere else. Okay, so an antioxidant donates its electron, its extra electron to a free radical, neutralizing it before it can damage a tissue. So we like antioxidants, and vitamin C is one of the vitamins and one of the micronutrients that can function as an antioxidant. Okay. Yes, vitamin C is often talked about for its ability to improve immune health. Vitamin C is important for the proper functioning of the immune system, but it's not like if I get a cold or a flu, I can just like mega dose on vitamin C and that's going to get rid of the cold. The only thing that can get rid of the cold or the flu is your immune system. There are no pills that eliminate these things from the body. Vitamin C, all it can do is it can support your immune system in functioning properly, but megadosing doesn't help it function like at like an extreme level. That's not how it works. Okay. Yes, vitamin C deficiency can lead to a condition called scurvy, but that's not going to happen in North America in 2020, 21, etc. Vitamin C deficiency typically only happens when people eat like no fruits and vegetables whatsoever. Okay, so for instance, you've probably heard the story of the sailors that were at sea for a long time, the British Navy that was at sea for a long time without fresh fruits and vegetables. They were some of the first cases of scurvy that were examined and that led to the figuring out that it was vitamin C that was deficient in these people. Scurvy can lead to bleeding gums, fatigue, poor collagen formation, and the remedy for it is, of course, vitamin C.